In the office off St. John's Bluff, working there almost every day. And Deborah would come in, work the office, work the phones. I mean, help us recruit people. We were starting from scratch in 2020, right? We had a new chairman. We were really trying to start a program. None of us knew what the hell we were doing, to be honest with you. But thank God for Deborah. She was there, even on her scooter. Okay, her leg was literally in the scooter. She was in the office, coming in every day, answering the phone, calling out, recruiting volunteers. So thank you, Deborah, for all your work. Finally, we see the fruits of it. I know we gave Laura a little credit earlier, but I don't think most of you understand just how difficult it was in 2020. Alex said we had a lot more staff. We did have about 230 of us working for President Trump in Florida in 2020. But I mean, it was a 24-hour-a-day job, right? And somehow I swindled Laura into working for me full-time. I mean, I don't know what kind of magic I was working that day, but she ended up working for us. I mean, whether I had to pick up the phone at, 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., or was willing to answer. She was working everywhere she was charged with, getting people out. I mean, Laura really put everything she had into delivering Duval County. And again, finally, we are seeing the fruits of that labor. In 2020, we lost by about 19,000 votes, raw votes, in Duval County, which, we had the best program in the state. I mean, I'm going to take credit for that. Best volunteer program in the state, with the help of these two ladies here. And finally, in 2024, we won Duval County. Duval County is red, and that is here to stay. I think that's to get a little more granular, so I worked in Jacksonville in the 2020 election in Duval. It was my first time here. It's certainly become my second home. So I went to DC for a little bit afterwards, don't hold against me. And I came back in 2022 to work on Governor DeSantis' re-election campaign, and that was a pleasure as well. And then luckily my buddy, he's my buddy first, so he can't fire me anyways, Alex, called me to bring me on for this election this year to deliver it again for President Trump, and we did that. So a couple numbers about Duval County. Like I said, in 2020, with all the resources we spent, I mean, all the volunteer hours, all the doors knocked, everything, we ended up still losing by about 19,000 votes. But this is a long-term game, okay? There's no magic in politics. There's none. I mean, besides President Trump, maybe. But there's no other magic, right? Things don't turn red overnight. They don't turn blue overnight. It's all a process. And this is a process we have delivered on every single day in the last 4 years in Duval County. And we will continue to. So I'm glad to be a part of that. A couple more numbers for you. So this year, about 81% of Republicans, all registered Republicans in Duval County, turned out, which is a huge number. I think that's a record, maybe, fact check me. So that's great. That's thanks to all of you in this room. Thanks to you up here. So we can give a round of applause for that. Please also keep in mind there's about 11,000 more registered Democrats in Duval County right now. But only 71% of them turned out. So these are real numbers that are truly affected by the grassroots, volunteer phone calls, text banking, door knocking. That's the difference. I mean, 10% is huge. That's what delivers the presidency to somebody. Duval County is now a national bellwether county because of the work that all of you in this room are doing, the work of your board up here, and everyone else involved with campaigns in the party of Jacksonville. So that's my spiel. I'm going to keep it short, but thank you all for having me. My name is Jake Holmgreen. I was the deputy political director for North Florida this year, my third election in Jacksonville, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake and Alex, and y'all done a great job, and so did all of our volunteers. And Jake, we might have lost Duval in 2020, but you have to understand too, we have 43,000 more Democrats now than, and we only have about 11,000 more. So it's a huge difference of voter registration, which we have to continue that going forth. So please, if you have any questions for Jake and Alex.
Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. One, what do you think of the possibility that Governor DeSantis might name Donald Trump as senator?
That one. Sure. You worked for it.
I'm not giving any endorsements. Let me preface this conversation. No endorsements. And I'm also not a psychic, but I think the odds are pretty good right now. I think Governor DeSantis understands we need a true conservative, not just conservative, but also MAGA-aligned leader in the Senate to replace Marco Rubio, and that will obviously happen in Laura Trump. So I think there's a very good chance that will happen.
Second question. I think she had a second question.
You said that this election we were down by 6% in ballots.
Yes.
Can you tell me what it was in 2020?
Oh gosh, I don't have the number, but it was a lot. We were getting our teeth kicked in on vote by mail in 2020. And what we saw across the board, and you saw this reflected in other states too, vote by mail was down everywhere from the last presidential election to this one. But Democrats were down a lot more than us. So it was well over double-digit losses in vote by mail. And then we had a huge hole to climb out of in turnout on early voting and election day. In fact, I remember a meeting we were in, and this is not a flex, sort of flex, I guess. We got summoned to, you know how Dean is. He's like, today. Very important meeting. The Trump high brass is going to be at the GOP office. I show up in slacks and a polo, and I walk in, and he's in a suit. Dean's in a suit. Andrew Johnson, who's the executive director at the time, is in a suit. We sit in this office, and Susie Wiles walks in, and she starts going through the numbers in Duval and where we should be and where we actually were. A lot of that had to do with the vote by mail. And the Trump campaign had to spend, I think it was $5 million in vote by mail chasing to try and get Republicans to go vote. Either vote by mail or vote early. So today's day and age, we do not expect that it's not a goal of ours to win vote by mail and turnout. We just want to not get blown out with vote by mail.
May I say something on
Yeah.
that? Like earlier in the year when we were doing the vote by mail renewal campaign sidekick, and there were about 285,000. That was the whole state. And when they loaded them into campaign sidekick, they didn't divide them up by county. So a lot of the counties go, well, we're not going to do that. They're not just our county. So Duval said, fine, we're doing. So we did about 250,000 texts for the vote by mail renewal reminders, just Duval County.
Yeah, that's awesome. Councilman.
All right, first of all, congratulations, great job. First question, real quick, and then the second question will love it. First question is, I'm a vote by mail guy. When can I go and renew for my next election? Do you know?
January 1.
Okay, great. Next question. I always like to know what the enemy's doing. Nikki Fried, she stay around, and what is the Democratic Party trying to recover on this?
So they're in full meltdown. You see that nationally, and then it's 10x in Florida. Sort of a tongue-in-cheek tweet the Florida GOP put out that I might have had something to do with, putting a full-throated endorsement for Nikki Fried to remain chairman of the Florida Democrat Party. She's the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, who would have thought screaming like a banshee and cursing would be an effective campaign strategy? No, I mean they're going to play for keeps here, and like look ahead to 2026. We will likely we're going to have an open governor's seat, open CFO seat, open attorney general seat, and then potentially if Commissioner Simpson, the agriculture commissioner, runs for governor, you could have every cabinet seat open in 2026. So we plus all of our legislative majorities, plus congressional. So this all starts again in 2026. And as we've seen, preaching to the choir here, we're faithful tonight. But the fact of the matter is historically, the party in power, the party in the White House, does have a rougher go of it in midterms. So we have to be ready, we have to be sharp and ready to win. Jake, do you have any color to add to Democrats, what they're doing, besides crying?
No, I mean, Alex summed it up pretty well. I think they're going to try and, we saw this with Obama, right? He presented himself as a moderate, so I think it's key, keep in mind, keep reminding your neighbors, your parishioners, Democrats are going to present themselves as moderate, that's definitely going to be their strategy, but obviously that is not their goal. And that's not the result. So just kind of be cognizant of that, is what I would say. I think we're in a lucky spot with their leadership being a little weak right now, but never forget the message there.
I'd like to ask you, what happens if these confirmations don't go through?
That's a little bit above my pay grade, but I think President Trump means what he says about recess appointments. I think that's the next step. It's clear that around the country and here in Florida that there was a mandate. No one expected President Trump to win the national popular vote. And when I say no one, we all sort of thought. Of the informed class, of the DC class, of the people that poll, no one really expected that. So the fact that he had a sweeping electoral college victory and won the national popular vote, I think means he has a mandate to govern and pick the team that he wants. We'll see if Democrats get on board.
Or the
We have about 6 Ryans there in the Senate.
Yes, ma'am.
Alex,
Yes.
can I ask you guys to do the Trump dance?
He's got better moves than me. A little stiff. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for you guys. As a parent of an adult child, I've watched something on the cycle that I think is pretty amazing, where I've seen my son, who's 26, with his friends really become more involved. And even the cabinet selections have been something that they have watched that I've never seen before with the younger crowds. I think a lot of that is from the guys like Vaughn and Rogan. But my question is to y'all and to us, and maybe there's a good answer. What are we doing to really embrace the 21 to 30 club to try to get them involved in this for the long term and not on Sunday?
Well, I'm barely in that club, so.
Well, that's a great question. So I'm about the same age as your son, actually myself. So I think, the first time in, since before Reagan, we won young men in this country, ages 18 to 25 voted Republican for the first time in decades. I think we saw a little bit of that was in the strategy due to Barron Trump. I played a part of that, as we know, with these new mediums of podcasting and online engagement and that sort of thing. I can say with my friends too, like my buddies I went to college, like I said, I'm the same age as your son. They have been very more involved too this year. So I think really we kind of tapped into, young men have been forgotten about in this country, right? The last, I would say since Obama, it's been a bad thing to be a young man. I think the party, especially with President Trump at the helm, has tapped into listening to young people, to young men, young women, engaging them in the process, talking about the issues they want to hear about, and continuing to keep them and build them into our Big Ten party.
Yeah, just as I work the polls a lot, and I was shocked at the number of first-time young people voting, and they were all registered Republican, because I was checking, or been checking it, and I was just like blown away by the numbers that came in.
So we have time for about one more question.
I don't think.
Following up on Councilman Bowman's question, who do you see as a potential enemy in the future?
Board or
The
domestic?
other side. Within the state.
Jason Pizzo is a name that we might not know, but he's a state senator, sort of fashions himself a moderate. He could be a candidate for a statewide office. I think that they'll look at someone like that. Nikki Fried is chairman of the Florida Democratic Party because she wants to run for statewide office. Make no mistake about it. She very proudly still says she was the last statewide elected Democrat when she was Commissioner of Agriculture. We didn't keep it that way. But she, I'm sure, will run for something if she survives her re-election as state party chairman.
Karen?
Real quick, how successful was Florida's ground game for the local and city voters?
I'm a numbers guy, and I don't have that number off the top of my head, but very good. So we were monitoring day to day. We score voters, right? That's how we look at it. Like very low, very unlikely, mediocre, likely, and very likely to vote, right? 0 to 100. And we were encouraged to see, as early voting went on, we were actually trailing Democrats in the very likely category, but beating them with the unlikely voters, which was a sign to us that we still have a lot more to tap into here of our electorate to get them out and go to the polls. So we won, I know this, every score, very unlikely to very likely, we turned out more voters than they did. And that's important, and that's critical, and that's how we saw those margins that we saw around the state. Like a place like Weeds Harbor having 95% turnout, you've got to have very unlikely voters show up. And that shows that it was an engaged electorate, and it shows that the plan that my boss, the state party chairman, Evan Power, implemented worked. He said, we don't have 230 paid staffers anymore, but we need to go back to the grassroots model that this party was built on. Steve talked about, the REC. The REC is not just some club. You are elected precinct committee men and women. You are the representative to the Republican Party for your precinct. So your job is to go out and be that representative and get out voters. And those folks elect county leadership, and the county leadership elects the state leadership. So the idea of empowering the grassroots, empowering the volunteers, we had an engaged electorate thanks to our nominee, thanks to President Trump, tapping into that even though we weren't getting the big bucks and we weren't paying everyone this time around.
Do you have any closing remarks?
No, nothing except thank you. Keep in mind the mission you have, right? Like I said, there's not really any magic in politics. This was not an overnight process. We delivered Duval after 4 years of hard work. More than 4 years of hard work. So please continue doing what you're doing. Thank you for everything you've done. I look forward to continuing to work with you and delivering more elections for conservatives. Thank you.
A caution in terms of Duval. We did all the right things. We set a record of Republicans getting to the polls. We set a record of Republican turnout. And we flipped this county for President Trump. But in our preliminary analysis, we're digging deep into the numbers and seeing, okay, where was President Trump strong and where was he weak? This is now a trend in Duval County where, for whatever reason, our Republican candidates seem to underperform when it comes to NPA voters. And we know that happened in Duval County because he won by 2%, but in a place like Miami-Dade County, where we had a similar turnout model for President Trump, bigger numbers but same percentage, he won Miami-Dade by 11 points. So we need to, and that's just a lesson to us, as the Republican Party, it's our job to mobilize our voters and get them to the polls. It's our job to educate the electorate, but we know going in Duval that we have got to get not just more voters out from the Democrats, but a lot more to make up for some of the trends of what we're seeing. So I don't want to end on a down, but I do want to end with an engage, like a call to action. The work is not done. We've got to keep pressing the flesh and delivering wins for Donald Trump and Republicans in Duval. So thank you guys.
Just a follow-up with Alex as far as the trends there and your question about the youth. The youth is one of the main demographics that we're going to go after, because look at this room. How many of you are under 30? Right. FSCJ. Right before COVID, I was the faculty advisor for a college Republicans group at FSCJ, and then COVID hit, that all got pulled away. We have almost zero presence. We have 4 colleges in Jacksonville, in Duval County, 4 main colleges. Obviously, Edward Waters might not be some rich hunting grounds, but UNF, JU, and FSCJ and multiple campuses. JU could be very rich hunting grounds. We have zero presence there. That's one thing we have to go after. And you mentioned your son and the interest that they got. We have to tap into that. Right now, we have momentum. And so, what Alex was saying about, mobilizing friends, family, neighbors, go after the youth, because we have momentum on that, and that's going to be one of our private markets. Turning points, yeah, there's all kinds of different things that we can tap into also, but we have to do it. So everybody keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay. We'll out the meeting before we do the raffle. And I just want to make sure that you turn in your badges at the desk up there and pick up all your trash and everything. So I want everyone to go, don't forget, the Republicans elected.